Hi, so I'm Farah. I am a GP in Edinburgh, so I'm a salaried GP, and I'll take you through sort of my route, which is slightly different to Dr. Khan's. So I finished school in 2008, and after that, I decided because I had an older brother that was in medicine that I didn't want to jump in and tie myself down to uni straight away. So I took a gap year where I traveled around Europe for a bit and did some work just to fund my holidays. And then I went to the University of Leeds. I did the 5 year course. I didn't intercalate or do any intercalations in that time. And then you go on to your foundation years. So then I went back to the north, so back to Newcastle. And part of your foundation jobs, it's 4 month rotations. So I did a mixture of surgery, so ENT, a bit of cardiology, respiratory, and then things like acute med and emergency medicine. So the purpose of foundation years I found was to find out what you like, what you don't like. But because you are limited in how many jobs you do, you might not see everything that you want. So because I couldn't decide what I wanted to do, I didn't know if I wanted to do acute medicine, A&E, or GP. I decided to then again take a year out. Um, and this is what people sometimes refer to as F3, F4. So some of my friends traveled abroad to Australia, some people locum, and I decided to do a mixture of locuming and doing a teaching fellowship in psychiatry. So what that means is you are employed by an NHS trust and they pay for you to get an extra qualification in teaching medical students, so in medical education, and this was specifically in psychiatry. So I was doing locum shifts, but also then teaching final year medical students the psychiatry part of the curriculum. So that was a good break for me because it's quite relaxed before committing to a training scheme. But then also because I was thinking about shall I do psychiatry or shall I do GP, it gave me the answer that I wanted, which was psychiatry is not for me. I don't mind doing it in little chunks, but I like having a variation. So then after that, I applied for the GP training, which is 3 years. So it is shorter than a lot of the other training schemes, again in Northumbria, so Newcastle. And part of GP training, it's not just doing GP for 3 years, it's 1.5 years GP, and the other 1.5 years is doing rotations that are going to be useful for you in GP land. So I did obs and gynae, did oncology, hematology, and then pediatrics. So everything that's really useful that you would need as a GP. And because GP is quite flexible and everybody needs GPs, it's a short training scheme. I also took 6 months out to attempt to go traveling around South America. We made it to Peru, but then COVID happened. But because it's GP training and they want you, they'll pretty much do anything to keep you happy. They let you do things like this. You want to take time out in your training to go traveling, fine, because they know that you're coming back. So then after that, I took a job as a salaried GP in Edo, which just means that you do a specific amount of days a week, or hours a week. And then alongside that, in my other time, I do aesthetics in a high street cosmetic clinic. So things like fillers, Botox, and things like that. So that's roughly my journey. If we can move on to the next slide. So then the day in the life of a GP for me. So, like I said, the key thing about GP, which works for me, is that it's very flexible. So, you can start anywhere between 8 and 9 o'clock. And part of that will just depend on what time I'll drop the kids off at nursery, or if you're running late that day, that's fine. Because you've got that flexibility, as long as you're there by 9 o'clock, which is when your first patient will be there, that's fine. So the morning session tends to last between 9 and 11:30. And as a GP, you'll have a mixture of 5 minute appointments, 10 minute appointments, 10 minute appointments, and they're all back to back. And that will be telephone, online appointments, but also some face to face. And following that, you do produce a lot of work in terms of admin. So any blood tests, x-rays that you need to sort out, or even referrals. But another key thing of being a GP is you get all the information from everyone. So that might be from the health visitors, from the hospitals, from the police, everything comes to you. So we have various meetings with social care, health visitors, just so that we can share information. So if there are any vulnerable people or things like that, that's how we make sure that patients are safe. After that, you'll do your afternoon session. So again, 1:30 to 4:30 or 5 p.m. And you can finish on your last page if you need to rush home, or you can stay a bit longer to finish your admin. But because, like we said, it's flexible, you can either choose to do that at the GP practice or take your laptop home and just do it there. Along with GP, because you're a bit of everything, so you know little bits about everything. So you can do, it's quite varied. So that keeps it sort of interesting. You're not committed to just doing one thing forever, which is works for me because I think doing a thing speciality over and over again, not to diss the other ones, I would personally get a bit bored. So because I can do whatever I want, you see a bit of peds, you'll see elderly, you'll do acute stuff. It keeps it interesting through the day. And then I think when you're doing your rotations, I found that I
Switch
actually did
పెట్టుకున్నాను
like
మేడం.
obs and guides,
విను నువ్వు వాటర్ మిన్నే
but not enough for me to, do it in training. So I've done extra qualifications that I can do women's health things. But if you've got an interest, say in ENT or minor surgery, you can develop that and do that as a number of sessions in the week. Um, and things like that. Other things that you can start are doing out of hours or being a GP and A&E. So you've still got that acute input, but a bit more than just your general day-to-day GP. You can also do working online. So a lot of things now are moving towards GP being available virtually. So that means you can pretty much work wherever you want, whenever you want, and you don't have to commit to being in a certain location. So it's making it a lot more easier for you to work as a GP from where you'd like. And I think with being a GP, every country needs a GP. So going abroad is probably, I don't know, easier for us as general practitioners. I've not, so people have moved to Australia, some of my friends have moved to the Middle East, some of them have moved to Canada. Just gives you that opportunity to move abroad as well. Um, Something that I would tell my younger self is maybe, which I try to do, is don't commit yourself to a speciality if you're not 100% sure. Take your time out, take as many F3, F4, F5 years that you need because it is a lifelong commitment. So if you're not sure, just, locum around, go abroad, see what you do like, so that you stay committed and you're actually going to enjoy what you're doing until you retire. And that's me.